Good morning, everyone. It is the first Monday in 2017. It is January 2nd. I'm Abby Huntsman in for Ainsley Earhart this morning. We do begin with a Fox News alert. ISIS is now taking credit for that terror attack in Turkey that killed dozens of people, the gunman in a Santa hat. And this morning, we are learning how that one American victim survived, how he was saved by his cell phone.
Plus, the president-elect is back home in New York, where he's preparing to share a major revelation about those Russian hacks.
What do you know that other people don't know?
You'll find out on Tuesday or Wednesday.
What could that be? We're going to check it out.
Maybe this was not a mistake after all.
Put these monitors on, please. All right, just relax to the left.
Just flip me, Ed.
Just flip me. Team Mariah now says they were sabotaged. We're investigating, so you don't have to. Mornings better with Mariah.
As Clayton Moore said this morning, New York City still recovering from the Mariah performance on New Year's Eve. You see, it's desolate out there. No one's on the streets. They ran for the hills.
I thought they were recovering from hundreds of thousands of people swarming Times
They're
Square.
curled up in a ball, but our show is not curled up in a ball. We've got a huge show ahead.
We've got Sean Spicer joining the show this morning.
The
John
incoming
Bolton.
White House press secretary.
Yeah, we're going to have to congratulate him on that job. We've got Ambassador John Bolton, who will have a lot to say, I'm sure, on everything going on.
And Mr. Larry Elder, who always has a great thing to say and understands how to get to the bottom of issues. He'll be fantastic. And we are watching what is known now only as the Eagle Cam.
Yeah, it's almost like elevator cam, but in this case, we've got some eagles being born down there in Fort Myers, Florida. Now, one of them, I believe, has been born.
That's a live shot right
so,
there.
Ed, you weren't here over the weekend.
Yeah.
We have been monitoring this
ferociously
continually for days. But the first eaglet was born on Saturday morning during our show.
Born on our show.
On our show.
I mean, it was
We were live.
exclusive breaking news, eaglet being fed alive in the bird's
I
nest.
think we're still waiting for the second one, but this is what makes America great. We love watching this eaglet hatch. It's the cutest thing ever.
It's cute, but I don't know if it's what makes America great. I appreciate it.
President-elect Trump did not take a break over the weekend, diving right in about all those revelations about Russian hacking. He, has had this very contentious relationship with intelligence officials about what really went down with the hacking. You see him there with the incoming First Lady, Melania Trump, down at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend for their big New Year's Eve party. But he took a moment out there to talk to reporters, and he teased the fact that something big may be coming this week.
You have a tendency, just looking at it from the outside, to doubt American intelligence when it comes to Russian hacking. I'm trying to just better understand why it seems that way.
Well, I just want them to be sure, because it's a pretty serious charge, and I want them to be sure. And I also know things that other people don't know, and so they cannot be sure of the situation.
Like what do you know that other people don't know?
You'll find out on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Only the way that President-elect Trump can do it.
Yeah.
I know something that no one else knows. You're going to have to wait a few days for this. And now we're sitting wondering, what on earth could this be? Is this even related to the Russian hacking? For all we know, he can get out there and make some other announcement about jobs or something unrelated.
But he's alluding to something deeper, which is let's get the facts. Let's find out what actually happened. What's been released so far is utterly insufficient, incorrect. The report that was released by DHS and FBI has been dismissed by a lot of people. Let's not just say it was an election hacking by the Russians. Let's really understand what happened. Then we can move forward. And this Trump administration, I think in many ways is right to be skeptical of whatever Obama wants to say happened in light of the political lens. And that's not to say that our intelligence officials are politicized. We know Russia's trying to hack us and is trying to do us
But that's
ill.
why he's walking a fine line, isn't he?
Yeah.
Because he has to be careful with some of the tweets where he's been saying Vladimir Putin looks smart. He's taking criticism from not just Democrats, but some Republicans about that tone. And so that's why we've got Sean Spicer, as you mentioned, coming up live here on the show in the next hour. And he was on ABC yesterday suggesting the real problem here is that the Obama administration has not hit Russia hard enough. Watch.
In 2015, China took over 1 million records, sensitive data, people like me who had worked in the government at any time, classified our personal information, where we live, things that we had written down on our applications or on our security clearances, and not a White House statement wasn't even issued. No action publicly was taken. So there is a question about whether there's a political retribution here, whether it's versus a diplomatic response.
So it sounds like you think these measures may be too much?
Well, no, what I think is
reversing them is on the table?
The president-elect needs to sit down with the heads of the intelligence communities next week and get a full briefing on what they knew, why they knew it, and whether or not the Obama administration's response was in proportion to the actions taken. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We need to have that briefing first.
So he's hitting on, I think, the question that people have been asking for days now, and that is about the timing of all of this.
Sure.
Why, when President Obama knew that this was going on from the Russians, or if that ends up being the case, what,
dating back to 2015.
18 months ago,
Yeah.
even 2015, Ed, to your point, why now? How political was this move?
And was the response truly proportional? If you're saying
Right.
the Russians hacked our election, are dispelling 35 diplomats and closing 2 mansions really the way to do it?
That's a huge deal.
Vladimir Putin clearly sniffed it off and said, "We're not going to do it. We're not going to do the same." And it's not going to change his behavior. It almost makes us look worse because they've ignored it. You want a sanction to have an effect that.
Well, remember how the White House
provides you an
itself framed it.
advantage.
White House officials were saying a few days back, Vladimir Putin needs to cut it out. Cut it out. You know, that's not exactly
Strong
tough
diplomatic
talk.
terms, yeah. Well, speaking of opposition in another form here at home, the Democrats are now making more promises about what they're going to try to do as the Trump transition turns into the Trump administration, vowing to make life miserable for Trump's cabinet picks. In fact, they've laid out now who they believe or who they'd
kind
like
of
to
their hit
oppose.
list.
Yeah, I mean, you can't oppose everything and everybody. You've got limited political capital. This is what Democrats signaled by Chuck Schumer, who they say they want to target. Rex Tillerson for Secretary of State for reasons we've talked about. Senator Jeff Sessions, Mick Mulvaney for OMB, and Betsy DeVos in education. And you can look at each one of those departments and say why that they're significant and what they might try to oppose.
Yeah, this will
in
be
each
the
of them.
story, I believe, that will continue on for the rest of this week, because now the focus is this incoming administration. Who is the cabinet going to be? Who are the main players going to be, particularly the Secretary of State? That's arguably, with what we're facing today, the most important role that we have.
Israel, Russia, so many other hotspots, Syria.
And his relationship with Vladimir Putin, and they're going to try to focus in on that. But someone like a Mick Mulvaney, who's been a fiscal hawk, and has been very gone at the budget, they're going to work on education. They're going to try to defend Common Core. Betsy DeVos has said she's not for that. So there's going to be very stark
There's another
ideological
part of this
divides
too, which is
here.
the New York Post has a report out saying that in private, President-elect Trump has been saying that he actually gets along better with Chuck Schumer, who's vowing to take on these nominees and make their lives miserable. He gets along better with Schumer than Speaker Paul Ryan and Senator Mitch McConnell. Remember, they were kind of lackluster, to say the least, in supporting him. And so that's going to be the big question as well moving forward. Schumer's going to throw out some bombs here to go after some of the nominees and keep the Democratic base happy. But is he going to cut deals with the president-elect on tax reform and other big issues? Somebody who says she now wants a seat at the table is Donna Brazile, the DNC chair.
Of course
now remember, this is Donna Brazile, who, while she was at CNN, was working to make sure that Hillary Clinton got debate questions, town hall forum questions, and now she's saying, wait a second, all that should be forgiven. Let's move on. Let's turn the page. I want a seat at the table. Democrats should have a seat at the table with Donald Trump. Watch.
He has an enormous opportunity, as every president in the first 100 days, to show that, he's eager to find common ground, to meet with, Democrats. I've heard from Elizabeth Warren. I've heard from Bernie Sanders. I've heard from a number of Democrats that will fight. But there are also, other Democrats who are saying, look, put something on the table. Let us work together. Let's see what he will propose on education. Let's see what he intends to do in terms of Obamacare.
Here's the thing, though. This is not someone who just handed over questions or to help the Hillary team. You remember that interview with our own Megyn Kelly after one of the debates, and Megyn literally had the email that was written by Donna Brazile, to which she said, well, this didn't happen, basically. She was refusing that was actually the case.
She said she was being persecuted.
And Megyn said, well, I actually have the email right here in my hands. Let me read it verbatim back to you. It was a great interview.
And now she wants the seat at the table. This is exactly how the swamp works. Exactly how it works. They say, we oppose you, we lie about you, you. We send debate questions. But now it's time to put us at the table because we're going to be good faith partners.
Let's put
Do you
those
really think Donna
differences aside.
Brazile and the DNC and the Democrats want to be good faith partners on? Look at the two issues you just talked about: education and Obamacare. So teachers unions and President Obama's signature issue, they don't want to be good faith partners on a solution. They want to protect his legacy or fight for the special interests that got them elected.
Also, think
That's a
about
very different
for
thing than
language
working
now.
together.
Let's have a seat at the table. What did Maxine Waters, Congresswoman from California, say last week on MSNBC? I'm not even going to meet with Donald Trump. I don't even want to talk to him. Now Donna Brazile is saying, oh, we want a seat at the table, want to work with this president. That's not what elected Democrats have been saying. They've been saying, we're not going to work with him at all.
That's a great point, Ed.
Complete opposite.
Full circle. So
By the way, I think you guys are trendsetters as well, because I see ABC doing this sort of diner type thing with
Really?
Newt Gingrich and Don. I've seen both of you doing that for a while now.
This is basically
just
what we do.
giving you credit.
Try to
Yeah.
Right here.
They're copy. I mean, they see what's going on here.
We're going
and
to
they
own the
want to
diners,
partner.
though, Pete. We're going
Yes.
to continue to own them. But we do want to know what you think about Donna Brazile and others asking for a seat at the table. Should they be trusted at the table with President
Is there
Donald
room
Trump?
at the table for them?
Yeah.
Obviously you want bipartisan votes, but are they coming at it with
Of course.
with the right
Friends at
intentions?
FoxNews.com.
Yeah, let us know what you think this morning. We'll read them later on the show. We do have some other headlines to get to this morning, starting with a Fox News alert, and now claiming responsibility, ISIS, for that New Year's Day nightclub massacre that left 39 dead in Turkey. The desperate manhunt for the Santa hat-wearing killer now intensifying by the hour. Police believe he is not from Turkey. The only American victim, a businessman from Delaware, shot in the leg. Listen to this, his cell phone deflecting that bullet, saving his life.
Crazy people came in shooting everything. I don't know. I saw one person there shooting. I'm hiding.
Unbelievable. Thankfully, he is expected to be okay. Investigators also releasing this grainy surveillance picture of the shooter, hoping that it will help catch that killer. And in the wake of that attack, police in California beefing up security for the annual Rose Parade, both at the football stadium and along the 5 Mile Parade route in Pasadena. More than 1,000 officers descending on the city to keep nearly 1 million people from around the world safe. The K-9 force deploying bomb-sniffing dogs trained to detect explosives. And a police officer fighting for his life this morning after being shot during a traffic stop. A major manhunt underway for that shooter right now, accused of opening fire on Oklahoma City officer Brian Sutherland, hitting him in the leg. Right now, police are reviewing dash cam video, hoping to get a clear description of that suspect. The only lead they have, the shooter's car was found abandoned in a nearby mall. And they may be twins, but these Arizona boys were just born in 2 different years. Sawyer Shea came into the world at 11:50 at night on New Year's Eve, while his brother Everett was born 11 minutes later at 12:01 on New Year's Day. The boys' arrival shocking their parents. They weren't due for another few weeks. That is so cute. A whole year apart. How funny is that?
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a Fox News alert. We just told you about that terror manhunt for a shooter in a Santa costume. As these attacks become the new normal, what can President-elect Trump do to stop it? Well, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer here with that next.
And after watching and waiting all weekend, a major update to this bald eagle waiting on her babies to hatch. We're, of course, going to take you to the nest live right here on Fox and Friends.
And a Fox News alert, a manhunt still underway for the terrorist behind a shooting attack in a crowded club in Istanbul. ISIS now taking credit overnight after a gunman in a Santa hat opened fire, killing at least 39, injuring dozens more.
Well, are these the kinds of attacks, are they becoming the new normal? And what can President-elect Trump do to stop them?
Here to weigh in is retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. He's a senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research. Lieutenant Colonel, good to see you this morning.
Good to see you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And this is obviously a sad way to ring it in, and just a reminder of what we face today. I'll ask you that question off the top. Is this the new normal? And if so, what do we do about it?
Well, the first thing we do is stop doing stupid things. Look, President Obama and his insane foreign policy, the high school debating team in charge has been horrendously bad for the world. He's created conditions in Syria, Libya, Yemen, and other places for terrorism to thrive, and we've got to stop it. That's the first thing. General Dunford and the Pentagon has been doing a great job in working in Iraq to try to push back ISIS there, so that's all necessary. We got to do more of that. Secondly, we got to work with the Europeans. The Europeans have allowed, for any number of reasons, especially Merkel in Germany, these radical Islamic groups to establish a foothold. And so one of the things we've been working on as London Center is looking at how we can enhance NATO. During the Cold War, we had to face terror as well. My first operations in Europe were undercover in the 80s, chasing terrorists funded by the Russians. So we've got to go back and look at the playbook of how we used NATO to effectively go after terror back then. So we've got to do both simultaneously, effectively, and we cannot neglect doing our own things here in the United States, but simply put, we've got to go to the source of terror to try to cut it off ahead of time.
Colonel, how do we get our allies, Europeans and others, to understand the depth of this threat? I mean, we have a news report today that they're looking at how to wire trucks in the government trucks so that they can be triggered and shut down if they're used for an attack, as opposed to understanding this is an ideology that wants to kill us. I mean, how do we change that mindset?
Precisely. That's well stated. You've got to change the mindset. You cannot go around and believe technology is going to be your savior. It's not. You've got to get at the root of this. And this is one of the things that Seb Gorka and Mike Flynn and I have always have talked about quite a bit. You've got to go after the root of the issue, which is radical Islam. You cannot pretend that radical Islam does not exist. I do believe that the whole philosophy behind this White House's denial of that's going to change very rapidly. But we've got to go after the culture. Simply, and by the way, we have allies within the Islamic community who do not wish to see their religion completely bastardized by the extreme radicals trying to run it now. So we've got to go to the cultural level, not the technology level, to go after this, and we can do that.
But Colonel, if you're saying a moment ago that building up NATO is a key part of this, we've got President-elect Donald Trump about to take office, and as you know, to say he's been a skeptic of NATO would be a dramatic understatement.
Yes, no doubt, and that's something that I think that Mr. Trump, I think, ratcheted back that quite a bit. One of the things necessary for both the war on terror and facing off against Russians. And let me be clear, the Russians are not good guys. They're not the ones behind the hack that they're being accused of, but they're not good guys, and Putin is a thug. We have to go at this two ways. We have to enhance the mechanisms within NATO to do intelligence sharing. That was done very effectively. It's never been done in the current war. And then use NATO to make it NATO 2.0 to make it completely effective. The British want to work with us after Brexit. They don't want to join the European Union army. They want to find a way to work with us. Yeah. We should take advantage of that, and I think Mr. Trump knows that.
Yeah, Colonel, how do you think that President-elect Obama will be judged by his handling of terrorism over the last 8 years?
But President Obama will be judged very harshly. I think anyone who looks at the record of what he inherited regarding the war on terror and what we've been left with, I mean, look, he actually went from essentially 2 wars to 8. This anti-war president is leaving more conflict for the guy coming in. Think about it. Yeah. So, and I've seen those traditional liberals upset about what the president's done. So I think it'll be a very harsh record, but I think we got the right guy coming in to take care of it.
Colonel, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you.
Next on the rundown, the former top cop of Chicago tearing into Black Lives Matter.
A movement with the goal of saving black lives at this point is getting black lives taken.
Why he says the group is sending a dangerously wrong message. Straight ahead.
And it might be the biggest scandal since Watergate.
With these monitors on.
We're back with a Fox News alert. A car bomb exploding, sending thick smoke into the sky feet away from an airport in Somalia. Gunshots and another bombs heard moments after that first blast. At least 3 people are now dead so far. No one has claimed responsibility. And ISIS uses them as weapons of mass murder. But this morning, scientists in the UK are secretly developing kill switch technology, preventing truck attacks like the ones that we saw in Berlin and Nice, France. It would allow authorities to interfere with a truck's electrical system to stop a hijacking. Those are some headlines this morning.
I don't think that's going to work. Anyway, college students from across the country coming together for Christ.
Your guilt and your condemnation and your shame, they're finished right here and right now. There is therefore now no more condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. It really is over.
More than 50,000 students are expected to participate in the 2017 Passion Conference.
Here with more, Fox News radio host and the author of the new book, The Deplorables Guide to Making America Great Again, Todd Starnes. Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year, guys.
Good morning.
You know, this is an exciting conference, and probably one of the best things about it, there's no lip syncing here. So all of the artists.
You were working on that all morning. Come on. That's good.
Look, this is really an amazing conference. 50,000 millennials, the people that Pew Research back in 2015 said don't go to church anymore. Religion's not an important part of their life. These people are packing out the Georgia Dome for worship and Bible studies and really doing good deeds in the Atlanta area. I think it's really a tremendous thing that's happening.
Where does the idea come from? Where did this originate?
This originated from a Bible study back in Texas that Louis Giglio started. You might remember Louis Giglio. He was invited to deliver the inaugural prayer back, I believe, in 2012. So that small little Bible study grew into really a global effort. One of the things they do is they really try to fight these social justice issues. For example, human trafficking. That's a big push to try to stop that. They raised more than $8 million. These college kids raising more than $8 million to fight that effort.
What do you think is the biggest misconception today when it comes to millennials and religion? Because you mentioned it. We see the studies that basically say that young people aren't wanting to go to church anymore.
Abby, I write about this in the book, is that there is a passion among young people that they really want to go deeper into their faith. It's not just something that they do on Sundays. They want it to be a part of their everyday life. And I think we're starting to see that with the groups like Passion that are coming out in droves. These college kids spending their own money to help others. In addition to all of this, they're bringing tens of thousands of new towels and socks. You say, what are they doing that for? They're doing it for the local homeless shelters there in Atlanta. So again, doing these good deeds, and these kids aren't getting the headlines. You know, you can get a couple of hundred kids to march in the streets and burn down the city, wall-to-wall coverage.
That's a
but
great
you don't
point.
see this on the news, and I think we ought to.
Just showing up at the Georgia Dome, it's cool, that's great, but as you say, it seems like the good works that happen after the fact are more important.
That's right, and and what's happening afterwards, this is something that happens annually, and they wanted to go back to the Georgia Dome because the Georgia Dome is going away. They've got a brand new football stadium coming into Atlanta. So this is one big farewell, and I think it's a great farewell as these kids, again, are out there doing good deeds in the name of God.
In some ways, do you feel like the size and scope of this is a rejection against the current sort of trends of our culture?
I think so. I think kids are looking for answers. You know, they see what's happening, on the college scene where conservatives and especially Christians, their voices are silenced. And yet at the end of the day, what the liberals are putting forward, what the secularists are putting forward just isn't meeting their needs. And so kids are out there looking for answers. And it seems like they're certainly finding them in groups like Passion. Louis Giglio and his team, Chris Tomlin, one of the great worship artists, Hillsong United. You talk about Hillsong United. They have one of the largest churches in New York City. So there's something going on here, guys, and it's exciting that Fox and Friends covers these kinds of
I was just
stories.
going to say thank you for reminding us of that, because we forget how important this coverage is. It doesn't get enough of it.
We're
Thanks,
glad you
guys.
Good to see you this morning.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, coming up, a law just took effect that says no work emails outside of work. Should there be a right to disconnect? We're going to debate next.
Then I don't have to research at all for the show. There we go. And breaking news on the most controversial piece of video since the moon landing.
These monitors on, please.
Chicago's former top cop tearing into Black Lives Matter, blaming the group for one of the most violent years in decades.
A movement with the goal of saving black lives at this point is getting black lives taken, because 80% of our murder victims here in Chicago are male blacks.
Well, it was a bloodbath year in Chicago. The city's homicide rate skyrocketing to 762 murders. That is more than LA and New York City combined. Oof. Well, the police chief blaming empowered gangs for those shootings. And a New Year's celebration goes completely awry when a man charges a police cruiser, hurling himself into the windshield. Watch. Whoa, well, that's one way to do it. You can see the 25-year-old drunk man running straight toward that cruiser before launching himself into the glass and climbing onto the roof. The two Wisconsin officers inside screaming for him to get down. The man arrested and then taken to jail. The officers were hurt, but luckily are expected to be okay. Man, that's rough. And take a look at this crazy picture. That is a plane that is upside down on top of a house. A pilot near San Antonio, Texas, making an emergency landing, aiming for a field behind the house, but obviously he didn't make his target. Instead, the 67-year-old clipping some power lines, flipping upside down, landing right on that roof. Thankfully, the pilot and 4 people inside the house were not hurt. Yikes.
Wow.
And thousands of Americans, I love this story, thousands of Americans right now keeping an eagle eye on this live camera, waiting for a second eaglet to hatch in Fort Myers, Florida. We witnessed right here on the couch the first one making its world debut live over the weekend, hatching right during our show on Saturday morning. And the second little guy is taking its time, though. No signs of any cracks in the shell just yet. I've been saying, watching this live is about one of the most all-American things you can do. To which Pete has said,
it's like
no,
seeing
I don't
America
agree.
born.
Like America Born.
It is.
Right?
It is.
America is born every day.
You're
It just
critical.
doesn't always have a camera. Listen, I love it. I do. I love it. I want to watch it. I want to watch more. But
And that
bald eagles hatched everywhere in trees around America.
But you don't get to watch it
That's
live
good.
like
It's not
that.
like that's the only bald eagle left, right?
This is a
But
symbol of America.
I love it.
I'm baffled. You
can't-
beat up on the failing New York Times every day, but you don't like the Eagles?
I understand Mariah Carey's
Screaming eagles. I love them. I love them. I just, I hope the second one hatches.
What do
I'm
you guys
really
think?
Is
Is Pete being too harsh this morning? Gotta love
Now he's
America.
trying to make up for it. I hope the second one's hatched.
Yeah, it's where you got to hedge. You got to say. But the first one's doing well. So, because I checked the cam this morning.
Yeah.
Oh, you
They're
did?
rooting for their success,
Yeah,
right?
I check it every morning. I'm just, not as invested.
You keep hedging. You come back. And, all right. A law just took effect that says no work emails outside of work. Should there be a right to disconnect? We'll debate it. Fair and balanced,
And
of course.
of course we will. No green card? Apparently no problem. This guy found another way in. Oh, gosh.
Welcome back. We've got some quick headlines for you. Talk about a startling discovery inside a suitcase. Yes, a 19-year-old man stuffing himself inside that very suitcase right there. A woman tried to sneak him into a North African area, into North Africa. It's an enclave of Spain, just hours into the new year, but did not get past agents. That's one technique. And a new study shows Christians are the most persecuted religious group in the world. The director of the Center for Studies on New Religions says more than 90,000 Christians were killed in 2016 alone. 30% of them at the hands of radical Islamist terrorists. The Italian research group will release a full report next month. Wow, powerful numbers.
Yeah,
over to you.
devastating. Meanwhile, a new law in 2017 allows people in France to ignore work emails when they're not at work. So if you're at dinner, don't worry about it. It's meant to end so-called hidden hours that employees are not paid for. So should people have the right to disconnect? We're here to debate. Psychologist Dr. Michael Woodward and employment attorney Richard Roth. Good to see you both. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to
Richard,
you.
you say this is a good idea.
It's a great idea. It's called the right to disconnect law. And the Labour Party in France decided that it's just because we are getting burnt out. That all they're saying is that you can still email over the weekend, you can still email at night, but the employer, only if you have over 50 employees, the employer has an obligation now to give you a time period to do it, 9 to 1 on Saturday and 9 to 1 on Sundays. The reason why it's a good idea for several reasons, but I have a feeling Michael doesn't agree with me.
This is horrible. This whole thing is horrible. First of all, let's just put it in context. We're talking about France, a country that has a mandated 35-hour work week, as well as I think something like 30 days a year vacation. Now they don't want to do emails at night. So I don't think we should be taking our cues from the French to begin with. But second, how are you going to regulate this?
That's a good question. But Dr. Furr, let's start first with, isn't it getting ridiculous all around the world, including America, where you never can focus on your family, your kids, because you're on the device?
Are we, too connected? Yes. But do you legislate discipline? No. And I think we do need to teach. And look, I work with clients all the time. I work with a lot of executives who do have challenges around this. I totally agree there. But we're in a 24/7 globally wired world where we work across time zones and remotely. I don't think you can legislate times where you're working, times where you're not.
Here's why he's wrong. Here's why he's wrong. Number one is there's several studies that have been done in the world and in this country. In fact, one done by a professor at Lehigh, Virginia Tech, and Colorado State, which said we are getting burnt out. Enough is enough. We have to take some time off in the office. The second reason why he's wrong is because we do legislate. We have 40-hour work weeks. If you work more than 40 hours, you have to get paid under the Fair Labor Standards Act. So we can can legislate it. Is it enforceable? We don't know, but it is legislatable. I mean,
so let me understand, Richard. So you feel like we're burnt out? Do you think everyone should get a trophy as well?
Not a trophy, not a trophy. But here's the deal: if your employer says I need something Monday morning, let them send you an email from 9 to 1 on Saturday, as opposed to 2 o'clock in the morning.
Sure, but do you want to restrict productivity? Like in this country, if we were to have a law like this, hey, you know, you've got small businesses saying we got to work around the clock to make this a success.
First of all, it only applies for people, employers 50 with 50 or more employees. Second of all, it doesn't apply in exigent circumstances. And third of all, you're not restricting productivity. If you say, listen, I need you in Monday morning at 8 a.m., then send the email at a certain hour. It's not saying you can't email. It's saying we're going to have certain times we're allowed to email on weekends. Make it 9 to 1 on Saturday, 9 to 1 on Sunday. It's
so,
not,
Doctor,
it sounds crazy, but it's really, really
I'm teasing
not.
Richard about the trophies.
Business problems don't happen like during set hours and times, right? Business issues, shipping problems, customer service problems, they happen all the time. And so you got to be ready, especially if you're a smaller, mid-sized business, to be able to tackle those problems at any time.
But Richard,
you got to be all hands on deck.
He wants to take a nap. He wants to relax.
You know what? It's amazing how many studies have come out, and they keep coming out saying that. And you can blame it on the millennials if you want, but the bottom line is that there's a lot of studies out saying that we are being burnt out. It's causing anxiety and stress in the workplace. So if you know, for example, I want to have dinner Saturday night with my wife and my children, and I'm not going to have to respond to my employer, that's a good thing.
Gentlemen,
it's a really good
at the
thing.
very least, I want to compliment you both. Pocket Square game is strong. January 2nd, right out of the box. Way to go.
Thank you.
What do you think? Send us an email, friends@foxnews.com. Thank you, Dr. Woodward and Richard Roth. Still ahead. What will happen to the president-elect's Twitter when he takes office? A lot of people are wondering. We'll ask incoming White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer next hour. And it's the bag that could save your life. We have the survival kit that can get you out alive in nearly every emergency. Abby's got it. She's going to live longer than all of us.
17.
Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, January 2nd. We are in 2017
Here's another look at this morning's
I'm Abby
top
Huntsman in for
stories.
Ainsley
Turkish
Earhart,
police
and we
are
do begin with
searching
a
for the
Fox
gunman
News
who
alert.
opened fire
Breaking
at
right
a
now,
popular
reports of
Istanbul
arrests in that
nightclub
nightclub
early
terror
New
attack
Year's
in Turkey
morning.
as
At least
ISIS
39
is now
people
claiming
were killed and
responsibility.
70
we learn
others
the
were
incredible
wounded,
survival
including an
story
American
of
from
one of the American
Pennsylvania.
victims.
Officials say the gunman
Plus, the
escaped in the
president-elect is back in New York
chaos.
this
And
morning and
President-elect
promising a
Donald
major
Trump continues
revelation
to
about the
express
so-called
skepticism
Russian hacks.
about U.S. intelligence reports linking Russia to cyber attacks aimed at interfering with the U.S.
So what could it
election.
be? We're looking to
Mr.
get to
Trump
the
says
bottom of it.
hacking is hard to prove.
To see
and
here,
it could
there's Sean Spicer in just a few moments to kind of lay out what's coming up in this transition of power. And Ambassador John Bolton, who's been all over these big foreign policy issues from Russia to Israel, everything in between.
Yeah, great insights on at home and abroad, which is what we try to do, is cover every day.
And you think about 2017, we're in a new year now.
Mhm.
You know, and it really is, 3 weeks away from the incoming administration.
Yeah,
and
less,
all of these issues we're talking about are going to fall right in their lap. So some real important questions.
But we're also monitoring something that America wants to monitor, needs to watch, needs to see, and it is that bald eagle right there.
You're redeeming yourself, Pete.
I know. No,
because last hour you weren't
super
loving this.
invested in this. Yes,
This is a symbol of America.
It is.
It basically is America, and I've been reminded by our producers. I was with the 101st Airborne. Our symbol is the screaming eagle. I mean, it is this
So
very
why do you
bird.
think you were so skeptical of Eagle Cam?
I don't know. It's just live cams scare me generally, but now I'm into it.
All right.
An eaglet hatching scares
And it
me.
hatched over the weekend for us. One of them did. So we got one eaglet being fed. You know, maybe we'll get to feeding time this morning.
Hopefully we'll get
and
the
we got
second
another one.
eaglet.
Maybe
So we're
it'll be
hoping
born.
that the second one will hatch on our show today. So we're watching that very closely. We'll bring that to you as soon as there are any developments. But there's some other things going on as well. This morning, President-elect Trump is promising a revelation on Russian hacking as incoming press secretary. He suggests that he could roll back those punishments imposed by President Obama. Here's what President-elect Trump said over the weekend. He came out unprompted over the weekend and had this to say about that.
It's Monday, January 2nd, 2017. This is the CBS Morning News. The hunt is on for the killer